Now, I want to move on to the program where for introduce some people. And we are looking in Cleveland to have the Honorary Consul that was appointed by the Irish government recently. And I've known him for years. That's the funny thing about it. He's from Derry City. He's north of the border, long ways from Mayo, but nevertheless, he's a very important part of this community, and he's very important to all of us. I met his mom and dad a few years ago when I was in Derry, the city of Derry, and they were just made so welcoming. I recommended that he be appointed the consulate because he was so good at treating Mayo people up in Derry. I thought he deserved it. So, Mark Owens, he's one of ours. We're delighted to have him, and he's going to be a great asset to the community. Mark, would you say a few words?
Thanks very much, Jerry, and thanks to Colleen as well for both of you putting this together today and inviting me and also to the Mayo Society for having me here today. And yeah, it was great to have some Mayo people in Derry a few years ago, and I told them not to charge them too much extra, but they didn't notice that part. So this is my first time being here in front of the Mayo Society since being appointed as the Honorary Consul for Ireland in Ohio. It's an honor that is something we've tried for years in Cleveland and Ohio, and I'm fortunate to be that person. There are many others before us that probably could have served this and would have served this just as well. As many of you are aware, thanks to Martin Lynch, the story of the Irish in Cleveland dates back to the 18th century, when some of the first Irish ventured here became well integrated into the economy and social life of the region. The Irish immigrants were hard-working and determined people. They built railroads, canals, and bridges. They worked in factories and on farms. They started businesses and raised families, and they made Cleveland a better place and continue to do so today. Evident with the many great people here in this room, working all walks of life from police, fire, elected officials, and civic leaders. These historic links are sustained to this day by the local Irish diaspora and community groups, as well as sports and cultural organizations. The Cleveland Mayo Society is a great example of this continued effort to keep these connections both here and in Ireland alive. If you didn't already realize, almost 15% of Ohioans claim Ireland as their ancestry, only second to the Germans at 20%. We'll catch them eventually. Here in Cleveland, I believe the affinity of Ireland also runs deeper than our heritage, and particularly reflected in our shared global outlook. From a consul general perspective, I represent Ireland. It'd be remiss of me if I didn't talk about the economic role that this new appointment does play in Cleveland, the greater area. If we look at Ireland, it sits large in American and particularly Irish-American minds and hearts. Truth to be told, only amongst friends, we are a small, or as some like to say, compact country. Physically, the country itself is smaller than the state of Ohio, with our population of 5.1 million, as released later this week. It's half the size of Ohio, less than half. We definitely punch well above our weight when it comes to economic impact. If we look at last 2021, the total value of goods traded between our two countries was $70 billion, representing around a fifth of Ireland's total. For companies looking at the Irish market, we boast the most educated workforce in Europe, political stability, a dynamic research and development ecosystem, and an ease of doing business that has been recognized year after year. While this story is well known in the US, it's important to reflect on the mutual beneficial nature of our economic impact. It's a two-way street. For those that didn't realize, there's approximately 650 Irish companies operating in the US, employing over 120,000 people in all 50 states. In Ohio, there's 150 companies approximately, employing 12,000 people throughout the state of Ohio. All this adds up to Ireland being the number 9 in the world for foreign direct investment in the United States. Remember, a small country, 5.1 million people, number 9 in the entire world for economic impact in the United States. I think that's something to be proud of as a nation and as a community of Irish Americans. I'm proud to say that now due to economic development, Ireland's youth have a choice. In fact, Ireland has experienced a net inward migration of talented and skilled people for decades now. We've also seen a huge social transformation in Ireland over the second 50 years of our independence, becoming a more equal and diverse society, from marriage equality and women's rights to one of the highest minimum wages and strongest labour rights in the world. We're also expanding universal access to affordable healthcare, childcare, and early years education. I believe the future of unlimited and shared possibilities for Ireland and the US exists as much in Cleveland as in New York, or Camp, California, or Boston. It is undoubtedly one in which strong, mutually beneficial trading relationships are central. I had the privilege of being part of a strong team 12 months ago when we met with Aer Lingus when they were considering a new direct route from Dublin to Ohio, potentially. We were part of that team that secured that direct service. The direct service from Cleveland to Dublin is a positive development that will make travel between the two countries easier. There's tourism, strengthen economic ties, and promote cultural exchange, as we see with John Carroll University that Brian will talk about in a second, and other schools in the area. It can serve as a gateway to other key European destinations. And Colleen mentioned this recently, so 2 weeks ago, you may have read in the papers, there was a delegation that went from Cleveland on the inaugural flight on May 19th. So I was part of that delegation with Mayor Bidd and the county executive Maine and several other elected officials and civic leaders from Northeast Ohio. And our first day we got there, this was not a junk of a trip. This was business and what we went to do. We arrived in Dublin at 8:30 Saturday morning, greeted by Aer Lingus. We took a 4.5-hour bus journey to Achill Island. That was our first port of call, was Achill Island. And we always hear of the red carpet people roll out when you're in Ireland. I have to say to this room today, the people of Mayo and the people of Achill rolled out a green carpet. It was unbelievable. It was important that our mayor, our county executive, and other folks on that delegation, in fairness, going into the trip, had no idea about the ties and the importance, especially of the Mayo and the Achill connection with Cleveland. They got it that day. They got it as soon as we arrived. We were piped across the Sound in the rain. And that was the last we saw of the rain. It was almost ceremonial. And it was great for the welcome we got there. And we met with, we were a strong delegation with Terence Denver, TJ Malloy, Steve Malloy's son, Kenny Deary, all just anything they could for us during that trip. And it was a real privilege to lead that delegation to Achill and to Mayo. And admittedly, it was my first time in Achill. And I did have the honor to be presented with a Mayo jersey on Saturday night at dinner. So they caught me off guard a little bit there. But it's, as Jerry mentioned, I'm always proud to tell the Mayo story of Cleveland. It's a very important link we have to Cleveland, Northeast Ohio. And really happy to be here today. And also my family's here today, my wife Maria, my son Eamon and daughter Lily are here to enjoy this as well. And to everyone else that made me feel welcome in this community. Again, 25 years this summer, first time coming to America. I'm still here, and here I am today speaking in John Carroll. So with that, Jerry, thank you very much. I'll turn it back over.